The views expressed in this blog are hosted on my own website, are strictly personal, and do not reflect the views of any organization. Hello and welcome once again, friends, to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. Namaskar. Now, last weekend I was trending for 48 hours on Twitter and more. The reason? My interaction with Rahul Gandhi at his press conference had gone viral. You see, I had asked Rahul Gandhi at a press conference in the aftermath of his disqualification from Parliament what his legal and political strategy would now be, what were the next steps that Rahul Gandhi intended to take. Now, Mr. Gandhi answered, I have only one step, that is to fight for the truth of this country and defend the democratic nature that is under brutal attack. At that moment, I tried to intervene and ask him to specifically tell us what his legal and political strategy would be. Mr. Gandhi responded, please let me finish, Rajdeep. Unless you want to answer it for me, you do that also sometimes. Now, it was frankly the kind of sharp exchange done without any rancor that really didn't trouble me. But intriguingly, both sides of the political spectrum appeared to hyperventilate and get excited. The BJP's IT cell, led by the one and only Amit Malviya and all his minions, thought that this exchange was proof that I was a Congress darbari, since Rahul Gandhi had suggested that sometimes I answer his questions. Please note, this is the same Rahul Gandhi who's never really given me a full interview. Frankly, nothing could be more absurd and devoid of logic. But clearly, logic is not a strong suit of the IT cell army, and nor is the basic understanding of the English language and the context in which this exchange had taken place in the press conference. Interestingly, the Congress supporters on Twitter were excited for an entirely different reason. They thought that their leader had schooled or taught a lesson to a senior journalist for interrupting their leader. Here again, they too need a reality check. Sure, I do often interrupt a politician. But was Rahul Gandhi schooling me or simply trying to make his point? I know a few journalist friends of mine felt that Rahul Gandhi was being rude, but honestly, I didn't see it that way. Journalists are meant to have a thick skin when it comes to dealing with netas in any case. What was far more troubling is actually Mr. Gandhi's response to a young journalist who's covered the Congress for more than a decade. The journalist asked a valid question of how Mr. Gandhi responded to the BJP's attack on him, saying that he had defamed the OBC community with his now infamous Sare Chor Modi Naam comment. Rahul Gandhi appeared to lose his cool at this time and suggested that the journalist should wear a BJP badge, since he was clearly asking questions that had already been asked on behalf of the BJP. It was an unfortunate remark, one that to my mind betrays a sense of intolerance and, dare I say, arrogance. Look, journalists will ask questions at press conferences. Sometimes they will repeat a newsy question asked earlier. But to accuse the journalist in this instance of being a BJP stooge was unfair and certainly not done. Frankly, the young journalist deserved better, much better. And frankly, all of us who were at the press conference should have defended our colleague at the very moment instead of defending him later on social media. But yes, while Rahul Gandhi's response to this young journalist was out of line, let me say this clearly today. At least Rahul Gandhi takes regular unscripted press conferences. In today's milieu, that is no small deal. There was a time when top politicians, including prime ministers, regularly took media interactions. But that simply doesn't happen any longer. Prime Minister Modi, for example, hasn't taken a single press conference in 9 years as Prime Minister. And I don't recall him taking one in the last few years of his tenure as Gujarat Chief Minister either. He has instead mostly preferred one-way communication through his Man Ki Baat and carefully choreographed social media interventions. He is not alone. Across the country, more and more leaders at the top prefer not to take questions from the media. I can't recall, for example, when a Naveen Patnaik in Odisha has held a wide-ranging press conference, or for that matter, when has a Sonia Gandhi done one, or indeed a Mayawati, or indeed the late Jayalalitha. The unwillingness to face the media in an open interaction is part of the supremo cult that has grown in Indian politics and, dare I say, is evidence of a lack of accountability. Ironically, there was a time when cutting across party lines, including Prime Minister Modi, relished interacting with the press even informally. I recall Mr. Modi as the BJP National General Secretary in the 1990s, once joining me on a news show at 1 hour notice. That's right, 1 hour notice. Even during the 2002 riots, Mr. Modi did press conferences and actually on one specific day gave me 2 interviews. The reason? The first interview that we did, the tape got corrupted and we therefore had to go back and do a second interview with him, and he agreed without any hassle. I also remember a rather more dramatic press conference that took place during the 1992-93 Mumbai riots, when Sharad Pawar actually asked me to leave the press conference. You see, Mr. Pawar was defense minister at the time, and I had done a front page story in the Times of India of questioning the delay in sending in the army to Mumbai. Mr. Pawar was clearly under pressure and was also upset with our aggressive reporting of the riots and asked me to leave the press conference. Interestingly, he apologized the next day. Actually, I was a bit surprised at Mr. Pawar's reaction because over the years I have found him to be one of the few politicians who's always ready to take questions from the media, including inconvenient ones. In fact, I recall asking Mr. Pawar once what it takes to make a successful politician, and he said 2 things: thick skin and patience. Sadly, today's politicians lack these very qualities. I am told that a few days ago, a BJP minister's staff member asked a senior journalist to leave a press briefing from Parliament because he didn't agree with her political views. I found that quite ridiculous. I remember fondly the days of the BJP in the Advani-Vajpayee era, when many of the journalists who never hid their anti-Hindutva stand or their dislike for Hindutva would be there at the press conference asking the top BJP leadership tough and direct questions. Not once did an Advani ji or a Vajpayee ji wince. In fact, they would always readily answer these very questions without holding it against those journalists. Now, sadly, journalists are being divided into camps. You are either for us or against us. You are going to take questions from journalists who are part of your so-called Godi media or pliant journalists who conform to your ideology. Again, all pretty ridiculous if you ask me. Not to forget the manner in which the likes of Union Minister and former Army Chief General V.K. Singh once called journalists in abusive language prostitutes. Why wasn't there a greater outcry then, I ask? Why didn't the media bodies that today are quick to take umbrage to what Rahul Gandhi did object then to the obnoxious language that was being used by a government minister against journalists? Government flunkies have used words like news traders, dalals and worse to describe us. And yet, there has been silence in the face of abuse and intimidation. Yes, like Netas, journalists too must introspect. Journalists too must have a thick skin and keep asking the questions. So let me ask this question here today. Are the rules different for those in government and those in the opposition when it comes to responding to the media? They surely shouldn't be. It's time for journalists with a spine to stand up as one and say enough is enough. Netas, mind your language and behavior. As a postscript, Dr. Manmohan Singh is often described and dismissively referred to by his opponents and critics as Maun Mohan Singh, accused of being a silent prime minister. And yet the truth is that Dr. Singh addressed, according to someone who served in his PMO, more than 50 press conferences in his 10 years in office. He addressed press conferences and took questions from the media whenever he traveled abroad, on flights, at Vigyan Bhavan, in state capitals, at the Editors Guild annual meeting, even did a live press conference with editors at the Prime Minister's residence. Mauni Baba? Sorry, not quite. Think about it. That was the Straight Bat. Do of course subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more such videos. For now, stay well, stay safe. Jai Hind, Namaskar, Happy Easter.